Okay, I think we are recording. Hello everybody. My name is Jay. I work with Garmin, and Michael DiCiello asked me to put together a short video for you to answer some questions about Garmin, and so I thought I would try to do this with the single camera that I have. Unfortunately, because I don't have the two cameras, I'm going to be holding some products and some devices up to the camera so that you can see them, kind of like this. But I thought what I would do is start off with going through what happens when you unbox a product and you begin to use one of our watches. So when you first take a watch out of the box, you're going to power it up, and on the Garmin watches, the power button is in the same spot on all the watches, okay? And that power button is right up here. It is going to be the button on your upper left. That is your power on and off button. Now, when you do this, the watch is going to come to life, and it's going to start to ask you some questions. And the first thing that you want to do, and you might even want to do this prior to powering the watch on, is you need to make sure that you have the Garmin Connect app loaded on your phone. The Garmin Connect app will work both on Android and Apple, but it's very easy. It actually just looks like that right there. You just open up that app and you key in your username and info, and that guy will fire up. And once that app is open, and then the watch is powered on, it's actually going to start already looking for the devices. So it's really pretty intuitive, it's pretty easy, and it's going to help you along. But once you get that watch powered up, it's going to start asking you some questions. The first question that the watch is going to ask you is what language, right? Pretty easy. For most people, that's going to be English. And to select that, you're going to hit the button on the upper right, on the opposite side of the watch. That's always select. So I'm actually going to touch that for English. And lo and behold, the very next question that the watch is going to ask you is, do you want to pair it to the phone? Now in this situation, I'm going to show you that the answer is yes, and we're going to see how easy this is. So again, I'm going to select yes by pushing this button right here. And now it's actually searching for my phone. And then if you go into the app and you go to devices, which is down here, I'm going to select Garmin devices. If this works correctly, it should find the exact watch that we're trying to pair, because they're already talking to each other. And if that's the case, what we're going to do is just hit that blue button right there and then follow the prompts and the questions that the software is going to ask you, and then the watch will pair to the phone and you're ready to use it. Okay? So that's how that works. Now in this case, I'm just going to back out of all this, because now I'm going to show you what some of the other questions are that the watch is going to ask you. Once it's paired to your phone, now it's going to ask you simple questions. Miles or kilometers? Guess what? We're going to hit select. Okay? 12 or 24-hour clock. In this case, I want 12. Male or female? Male. Year you were born? I was not born in 78. I was actually born in 74. Doesn't matter in this case. I'll just hit select. Okay? How tall am I? I'm actually 5'9", but it doesn't matter. Okay? These are all very easy questions. How much do you weigh? I'm definitely not 170. Doesn't matter. Okay? This is a good one. Do you want to set the time manually, or do you want to use GPS? I always use GPS, so I'm going to select use GPS. Now, if it takes a little while for the clock to get updated, the watch is going to ask you, you might want to go outside away from tall buildings, because you can't get, say it's asking you that right now. You might want to go away from tall buildings, trees and stuff like that, so they can get a better signal so they can lock on to the time. I'm just going to let this watch sit, and I'm going to use a different watch for the next piece. To use the watch is very, very simple. There's a lot of preloaded activities in the watch, and depending on which one you have purchased, you're going to get all kinds of fun data, and all of these preloaded screens can be customized and adjusted to your liking. In this case, let's just talk about running. Let's just say I want to go out on a run. I've got the watch on my wrist, You've got your clock on. The first thing that we're going to do, again, is we're going to hit that select button one time. And then it's going to give me a list of activities to choose from. Now, this is important. So these buttons on the bottom left of the watch, right here, are your up and down toggle buttons. So in this case, I'm actually going to toggle up to run. If I want to toggle down, I just hit toggle down. But in this case, I'm going to hit toggle up to run. And then once I'm on run, I'm going to select that. Again, select. Now what's happening is the watch is going to go into its ready mode. You're preparing to go on your run. And if you're outside, you're going to have to wait a few minutes for the GPS and the watch to lock on to the satellites. And when that happens, you can see that little green arch at the top. That's indicating that the watch is ready to go. It's locked onto satellites and you can begin your run. To start your run, you're ready to go, you're ready to start running. Guess what? You hit that start button again. I am now running. And you just go run. Now, all of the watches, one thing to keep in mind, they're going to have a default setting to alert you every time you tick over 1 mile. You can change that if you want it to alert you for every kilometer, or if you want it to alert you for every 2 miles, whatever you want it to be, you can adjust the watch to a customized setting. One of the questions that Michael asked me to answer is, how do you use the lap button? I typically do like to run at the track on a training workout. If you're running in a track and you want to count your laps to see how fast each lap has gone, I'm still running right now. I've been running for 39, 40 seconds. But now I'm starting to come around the track on my lap and I want to hit the lap button so that I can see my lap splits during my workout. The lap button on all the watches is the same, just like the power button and just like the select button. The lap button is actually going to be this bottom right button. And if it was on your wrist, it would actually be, if it was on your left wrist, you could hit it with your index finger. So I'm actually going to hit that lap button right now so that you can see what happens. I am running and I'm going to hit lap. 1 lap. Now I'm starting my 2nd lap. And I'm out on my 2nd lap and I'm running around the track and we're still going. Okay, I've still been running for, 1 minute and 27 seconds. But I'm coming up on my 2nd lap. That was a pretty fast lap, but I want to hit it again. That's my 2nd lap. Okay, so I've just marked 2 laps on the track. Now let's say I ran 5 or 6 laps and now I'm finishing my run and I want to end my run and I want to end my workout. Guess what you're going to press? You're going to press that stop button, which is the same button that we use to start the workout. I'm going to hit that 1 time and you can see the little red indicator, and now the workout is stopped. And once that workout is stopped, you're going to look at your watch, and just like before, the watch is going to ask you some questions. What do you want to do? I mean, you're pausing your workout essentially. Do you want to resume because you just had to cross the street? Do you want to save the workout? Maybe you went in for coffee and you want to resume later, so it'll pick back up where you left off. Very cool. Or you want to do a manual lap. This seems like a little bit too much work when you can just hit the lap button. Or maybe you're lost and you need to get back to the start. On a lot of watches, it'll help you get back to where you started if you're lost, so you've got that choice. In this case, the last thing that it's going to ask me is discard. This wasn't a real workout, so I'm going to actually select discard. Yes or no? The answer is yes. Workout is now discarded. It's that easy. So you can do that with every one of the different workouts that are pre-selected in the watch. And all of that information that is recorded then on the device will then move over to the Garmin Connect app so that you can analyze that. So let's talk about that for a second and get into some of the questions that Michael had asked me to cover. So one of the questions that was asked is, what does VO2 Max mean? And this is a very common question, and it's something that the watch can actually read for you. So VO2 Max is basically your body's ability to produce oxygen to ailing muscles, right? So everybody has a different VO2 Max level, and that's identified by a specific number. Once the watch learns you over time, it's going to give you an estimated VO2 Max reading. Now, getting a true VO2 Max number from a watch is impossible. You can't really get that. To get a true VO2 max reading, you actually have to go to a lab, run on a stationary treadmill or a stationary bike with a covering over your mouth and feeding all this data into a machine. That's not what's happening here. We're just giving you an estimated VO2 max number so that you can help improve your fitness. And that's done on the watch through the heart rate. All of our watches now that are inline product have built-in heart rate, and that will help determine what your estimated VO2 max is. Okay? Next question. How can I use it to train better? This is a great question and something that Garmin is really proud of, I guess. The watch actually is your own little personalized coach. So you've got a couple different things that you can do. If you're actually working with a real coach, a person, that individual can give you a scheduled list of workouts that you're supposed to do. And if that's the case, you can actually load those workouts then into the watch, and instead of just selecting a run and going out and logging a bunch of junk miles, you can actually do the prescribed workout that your coach has assigned to you. And you can do that by setting different alerts on your device. Maybe you have to run for 30 seconds and then walk or rest for 5 seconds, and then you do a block of 5 of those, and you can set those intervals right on the watch. So that's how you can use the watch to train better. If you don't have a coach and you want to be a better athlete or a better runner, you can use one of the preloaded coaching programs that are found on the app through your phone, and you can load all those workouts again into your watch and go use those. Okay, so next question here. What does the training load mean? So, training load basically is exactly what the word says. Once you begin to use the watch for a period of time, typically we say 10 days or more, it's going to start to learn your regular routines and how much you're training. And so it's going to give you some training load data. It's going to say, hey, based on what we've seen from you over the past week, your training load is a little bit lower, or your training load is a little bit higher. And so it's just going to tell you that. It's just basically an alert. Okay, so what is aerobic and what is anaerobic? I'm not really maybe the best qualified person to answer this question. You could probably get a more scientific answer if you just Googled this, but basically aerobic and anaerobic is the difference between your ability to go as hard as you can at a sustained effort and how hard you can push yourself beyond your regular maximum effort, right? So anaerobic would be, okay, I can do 120% of my regular exerted effort for maybe 2 or 3 seconds before I fall over and can't run anymore. And aerobic is basically just that long distance, high intensity workout that you can sustain. I don't know if that answers the question very well, but like I said, you could probably get better information from Google. How do I use my lap button? I think we already talked about that, but I'll give you a quick review. Remember, when you're in the watch, if you just hit that lower right button during your workout, that's going to count you as a lap, and you can keep hitting that as many times as you want. Next question, and this is a pretty good question. How accurate is the heart rate? So on all of our newer devices, we have updated the heart rate mechanism. It's called an optical heart rate, and it's based on these LEDs that are in the back of the watch. It has been dramatically improved from some of our earlier watches, but we always like to make mention that if you want 100% accuracy, you do still need to wear a heart rate monitor to get that accuracy. And then it's also important to note that when you do wear a heart rate monitor, whether it's a Garmin or something that you already have, those heart rate monitors will still pair to the watch. Even though we have heart rate built in the wrist, it'll just override the wrist-based. To do that, you would just go into the settings under sensors and then find sensor and then pair it. It's really pretty easy. Anybody at the running store, Michael or anybody, can give assistance with that. Okay? Best version to buy for just running. Good question. So because Garmin has so many different products and so many different niche products for all the different activities, really if you want the very simplest watch, inexpensive, that doesn't have all these technical bells and whistles and fun little details, and you're just a runner and that's all you want to do, I would personally recommend the Forerunner 45 or the Forerunner 245, and that's all you're going to need. There are additional preloaded activities in there, but if you just want simplicity, that's pretty much one right there. This is called the Forerunner 245. It's a great watch. It's pretty much been our bestseller, and if you're just a runner, that's all you need. Let's see. How does it determine if you're undertraining or overreaching? Again, this is similar to what I had talked about before when the watch begins to learn you. For example, if you do a week-long block of training and you run every single day for 5 miles, and then the next week you only run twice, you're going to get an alert on your watch that says you're undertraining. If you run every day for 5 days, or for 5 miles, 1 week, and then the next week you run every day for 10 miles, then the watch is going to tell you you're probably overextending based on what we've seen in the last week. So it's going to be able to tell you that, and it's learning your habits over time. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's what's happening. Why doesn't my Garmin mileage ever match my treadmill? This is a common question, and typically the way that this question is answered is there is no treadmill in the world that is calibrated correctly, and then there is no treadmill in the world that's calibrated the same as another treadmill. It's impossible. So what we have done in the past is we have advised people that are running on the treadmill a lot in the winter months to use one of our older products called a foot pod and pair that to your watch, and that's basically like a speed sensor for your foot, giving you an accurate read of your mileage and your step count and your speed. And you would run with that foot pod outside to calibrate it, and then when you run on the treadmill, it would know what your stride lengths are and what your regular speed and cadence is, so that it could give you a more accurate read for the treadmill. Unfortunately, we've since discontinued that product, and we've taken that technology and put that more into the watch itself, and we're now finding that we're getting similar or as good of results without the foot pod and just the watch. So if you just toggle down on the watch to treadmill run, and you continue to use that on the treadmill indoors or on an outdoor run, it will give you a much more accurate reading. How does it determine your steps while walking versus running? Well, it determines your steps the same on both of those activities because you're moving. And if you're not in an activity, the watch is actually going to be utilizing something called Move IQ, and that means that just based on movement, because there's an accelerometer in the watch, it's going to know if you are running or walking. And it knows this by how fast you're going, because it obviously can tell if you're moving fast or slow. But if you're if you're running or if you're walking, either way it's going to be able to determine your step count from impact, arm movement, and just the fact that you're moving at a certain speed. Which watch has the best battery life for ultramarathons? I love this question because this is something that Garmin prides themselves in a lot, and that is our battery life. If you're an ultramarathon runner, you are absolutely going to want to look at the watch that I wear, and that is the Forerunner 945. This watch has a mode, as do several of our other watches, called Ultra Track. And Ultra Track is a particular mode that helps kind of string out that battery life and communicates a little differently to satellites to again keep that battery life lasting a little bit longer. So when I talk about satellite connectivity, what I'm saying is that on a normal activity, if you're in normal GPS, it's probably pinging that satellite every second or maybe every few seconds. When you're in Ultra Track mode, it's going to delay that ping up to 10 or 15 seconds, I think sometimes maybe even 20 seconds, so that it's not draining the battery life quite so much, and it'll help stretch that life out. And if you have all the settings turned on correctly with ultra track, Bluetooth off, optical heart rate off, and a few other settings, you can get up to 35, 40 hours, sometimes even 50 hours of continuous battery life for your ultra marathons. One thing about our products that differs from some of the other products is that if you did need longer battery life than what the watch can give you alone, it will hook up to an external battery source. So if you have a Camelback and you wanted to run a cable to it, you could do that without having the watch leave the activity that you're currently in. So you could plug the watch into your external battery source and still stay in your ultra marathon mode and capture all your data and be good to go. So how can we track it better for indoor running, manual, lap, the miles? I'm not sure I understand that question completely, but tracking for indoor running, again, just put the watch on indoor running mode. A lot of the newer watches actually have an indoor track mode, but if you're doing any of the preloaded activities that do call for it to be indoor, that means you're not syncing up to satellites. You're basically just recording time and movement. So your accuracy could be pretty good, and unless you can find a foot pod, I think you'll get pretty good results indoors. Should I wear the heart rate strap even if my watch has it in my wrist? I think I know what that question means. Again, as we said earlier, the heart rate that's built into the watch is very, very good, but if you wear one of the Garmin specific heart rate straps, you do get additional data, and a lot of runners want the data that is provided from these heart rate straps. So you get vertical oscillation, ground contact time, left and right leg balance, which is something very interesting to look at if you're a runner, especially if you're injured. I always wear a heart rate monitor when I go on a run, even though I have it on my wrist, because I want that data, and I know that it's 100% accurate. So you don't have to, but you absolutely can, and seeing all the extras is certainly kind of fun to look at. So I think that's it for the questions. I hope that helps, and I hope that if you have any other questions, please send them over to Michael. I'd be happy to answer them for you, and happy running, and stay cool.